My name is Joe Woodham. Welcome to All Things Design, the podcast that unpacks how design drives digital transformations. Today, we're speaking with Gaston Guernik, Global Head of UX Design and Innovation for QBE. Gaston, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure here.
All right, so we've got lots to unpack today. Let's start with a bit more about you and your background. How did you get to where you are now?
So I was born in Argentina, and then I moved to Spain. I lived there 12 years. And in Argentina, I supposed to do economics, and I did 1 year, but I didn't like it. And then I moved to industrial design, which is pretty similar to UX, the principles that we have in UX, because I'm really curious. Before I finished the university, I was, participating in some contests, and I won some contests about design, graphic design, and advertising. So I moved all my career through different creative, areas. And I moved from industrial design to graphic design to advertising to UI UX and, design system over the years. And in the last probably 15 to 20 years, I was working in UI, UX, and finally in the last 10, 12 years in design systems in every area that you imagine, in franchising, in different kind of furniture design systems for shops, and also different design systems in digital like we know today for websites and applications.
What's because you've been in design systems for such a long period of time, with the evolution of going through different types of products and now being digital products, how has that design system changed, or has it kind of fundamentally stayed the same?
That's a great question, to be honest. And I think every change is because we are customer first and what people say about UX or CL, and it's about the customer. So I always make a joke, with my friends saying, when you was going to, I don't know, just have some relax and drink something in a bar, you was going to the bar and you was asking for a Coke, and they just place the Coke, you drink the Coke, and you spend, some relaxed time. Today, when you go to a bar and you ask for a Coke, they say, okay, do you want that Coke in a can or in a bottle? You say, oh, in a bottle. The bottle need to be 500 or 350. No, 350. And then you keep, replying questions until you get the Cokes that you are looking for. So back in the day, we didn't have too many choices. We didn't have many choices. When I was young, I had 2 channels in my city. It was a small city. Now, when I go to Netflix, I have thousands of choices for me, for my kids. So I think the design systems are here to try to cater for different custom needs that we have. These custom needs are more specific for everyone. Now you can tell if you are like this type of music or another one, or if you like this drink or another one, or if you like this type of images or another one. So in order to build something at scale, you need to be able to build something that has enough ways of customization, but also to be consistent, to present your brand to digital interactions all over the world for different companies, for thousands or millions of users.
How do you find, I'm going to circle back to the Coke analogy, right? Like if I was going to a bar and I wanted to order a Coke and they asked me 10 questions before I got my Coke in a bottle with a straw and some ice, like how do you put together a design system and filter out the noise so you're not trying to chuck everything in and you're going, this is what will work and this is what we need and this is what we don't need? How do you run through that process?
Yeah, look, like in my life, I'm crazy for efficiencies. So I think you need to be really efficient. And the way that you are not lost in this noise, as you said, is try to find patterns. You can have 1 million customers. But usually the statistic says that when you ask to 10 customers something, more likely you get 90% of the common answers that everyone will give you, matching their responses. I think the number says when you reach 6 customers, they will give you 75, right answer. So it's trying to find the patterns between all of these answers. And then you will see if you have to go for this side or that side. And then I think you can cover between 75 to 90% of their needs.
Okay. So let's talk about how you go into an organization and you go, all right, so let's build a design system from scratch. What would be your starting point?
Those patterns and the efficiency, I think, will be my starting point. If you have a company in, let's say, 27 countries, as the company that I am right now. And then you have to design one button, a single button. Behind this button, you have probably around 200 assets because you have the button, in different states, like a hover state, default state, and so on. But also you have large, medium, and small buttons, and the list can keep going. So when you have this such big amount of buttons, if you decide to build that in this country and then you replicate that in another country, you need to build that from zero, and in another country, you end having a multiple type of button that doesn't have the right consistency, and also you lose a lot of efforts and time that drives a lot of inconsistency. So it's not really efficient. So what you have to do, coming to the another topic, is trying to find those patterns to say, okay, what are the basic components that we need to use and reuse in every single product or service that we are dealing with? Another pattern reading, if you were to call that in that way, or maybe it's my English that is not right, but you have to understand the products and services and what the common patterns that you have across those services and products. There are companies which is easier. So if you go to Airbnb, it's a big company, but they have 3 products. They have, online experiences, they have real experiences, and they have houses. They don't have too much. In our case, we have hundreds of products across the globe with different cultures. So we need to be really careful to be efficient from the beginning and start for that. Reading patterns in products and in assets, and being sure that we are efficient in what we are doing.
So let's say, like, I assume that, well, before you joined, design was being done, and it was being done in the efficient way at the time. How do you go in and go, all right, my job is to create a design system, get the efficiencies? Like, do you deal with different departments, the different countries, to go, what's everyone using? How are you using it? Let's bring this together. Like, what's the process?
It is a really long process because what we did is we did 3 types of research. So we did an internal research trying to understand what's the goal for every region, for every country, for every product, and for every page. Then we did the same to try to understand what are the most common patterns and the best practices in UX and in UI in our competitors. And also we did the same cross industries, trying to understand what's the travel industry doing. So why they have a good search, which is one of the main focus in travel. And we keep doing that in different industries. So then we try to combine all of this knowledge and apply in a customized way to what we are delivering, right? Because we have platforms that we cannot change because it's too much time, or it's too much effort, or it has been here for a long time. It's such a trust invested in that company that we cannot change it. So you need to try to understand who you are as a company and what you can do and what you cannot do.
What in some of the, like, I imagine coming in and working with multiple regions and so much complexity comes with some stakeholder challenges. Like, what are some of the things that you had to overcome from maybe going, hey, we're going to start using this design system and this is why? Like, how much of an education piece was it to different people, different departments, different regions? Like, how did you approach that?
So, I really like, this speech from Steve Jobs in Stanford, that he said that, he was learning typography when he was young, and then he was learning another thing, and then he combined all together. So for me, it's kind of the same. So when I was young, I went to a conference, and it's sticking in my mind that this guy says, I have my own agency. First thing that I'm doing is reading people. So when you go to a family owner, they have their own goals. When you have a freelancer as your customer, this freelancer has their own goal. When you have an executive working in a national company, different goals, international company, different goals. So everyone have their own goals, and that's totally fine because that's how the company works. Like you have your goals and you really care about that and you are really good in what you are. So the first thing is try to understand what are their goals from marketing side, from product side, from IP side, from security side, and so on. Then understanding those goals, we try to understand what's their flow. what they are doing day by day. And we find out that when in different companies it's coming a new set of tools or a new design system, they have to learn the way that this design system speak, or this design system use the terminology or the glossary or anything that they are using. So we say, why we don't do the opposite? We need to understand the UX, understanding what's the best what's the best way to remove friction so they can use the design system, or we can increase the adoption. So we try to do some interviews. We try to work with them. We try to work in every single project and set up the team in a way where we are not centralized and we are not federated. We work with them in every single project. So we learn what they are looking for, not to what they say only, but also to what we see. And then applying that with our team and having discussions every week, twice a week, which is kind of like get a bit understanding of what's the best way to provide that. And then we build our documentation in that way. So we don't have the documentation only for designers, only for developers, only for business stakeholders. We try to speak their language in every piece of documentation that will be read for them in every special case. It's a little complex. I can extend that with you, but I
imagine it's very complex, even if you want to extend it. And how so you just mentioned that you write it and deliver it in how they need to see it. Is that departmentally based, different business unit based? Like, are you rewriting it for everyone, or is it trying to write something that everyone knows how to use and it's easy to follow?
No, it's basically we write down for developers, designers, and business stakeholders. Doesn't matter what direction what you are working on. And there is one principle that I hear from someone, I don't remember who said that, but that person says, the customer goes to your digital touch point and they need to call you is because you are not doing a good job. So every time that someone calls us or someone say, hey, I don't understand that, we try to fix it. Of course, we need to have the resources, the time, and so on. But every time that we got this feedback, we try to fix it. One good example is most of the documentation for our developers try to be in the call, no in our SharePoint or in our, hub. Try to be where they are doing the job. Yeah, it's not only the language; it's also where we place that.
So you've helped produce the code so they can just go, all right, I need this for this button to make it easy.
Yeah, and we try to have the documentation there as much as we can.
Okay, we can see why that's efficient.
I did that all the time, to be honest. So I told you that I have worked in this franchising company for almost 2 years. It was a client for my company. So I had my own company for 12 years in Spain. The problem that they used to have is that when you have a franchising, if you pay in advance because you like the franchising and you would like to work with them, sometimes you need to wait 1 month, 2 months, 3 months until they bill all the franchise for you. But you keep paying, electricity, energy, accounting, everything. So it's not really good business for you. So, and it was a challenge because we didn't know the measurements of the site. We didn't know the digital devices that they have to do. So we have to build all in a way that can be scalable. So what we did is we built all in numeric control in a way that I can create one, like a piece of furniture for 1 meter that can be scalable to 2 meters, 3 meters, and 4 meters. In that way, once I got the first floor plan of the business and they signed the contract, I send this floor plan to my team. My team can say to the control numeric company, the carpenter, to build that. And in less than 6 days, they got that. So instead to build that in 3 months, but it used to be the time that they spend that, we build that in 6 days. And it's because we understood how the control numeric company was working, and we understood the process between the franchising company and the person that would like to, purchase that franchise.
It's like, that's a obviously very, very clear example of creating efficiencies using a process or a design process. So you've taken it from 3 months down to 6 days, which ROI, that's incredible. How do you try and quantify that, what you've done at QBE, implementing the design system across Australia or the 19 countries that you operate across? So it's like, how do you measure the efficiencies of what you've done or all the hard work that you've done? Is there a way that you can tangibly measure it other than people not calling you to ask questions about how to implement something?
Currently, we are tracking that manually, but we are working to implement that by code and different ways. One way of thinking is every time that they call us or they send a message, or every time that we reach out to them, to try to understand if they're going to use that or no. And if they make the decision themselves to use that. So far, 100% of the times that we have contact with them, they decide to use it. And if there is something that they think that we need to polish or whatever, we try to do on the go. What I really like to call the design system a compounding of knowledge. It means that if I share something with you and you use it, once I learn from you what's the best way that you think that we can improve that, I put that knowledge in the asset again, and the next team can use that. So I think that's why we got kind of like a really nice adoption, is because we learn from the first project, and I'm pretty sure that from the first set of assets that we used in the first project to the last one, which is almost the number 100, we improve that again and again and again. And it's not because we are smart enough. It's because we use the knowledge for every one of these 100 projects, kind of like trying to understand how they think that we can improve the asset that we are building for them.
In terms of like challenges, I guess building out a design system that has to work across multiple cultures and countries. What are some of the things that you've learned implementing that and trying to roll that across multiple regions?
That's a really interesting question, because we learned a lot. Personally, I really like to listen to music from different countries, understand how different cultures work, if they decide to go for this path or another one. One specific thing that we learned is that in Asian countries, they would like to get the price as soon as possible. So if you go to show, different features of your product, it's better if you show that in the first screen on the second one, because sometimes they don't want to wait until the end. So maybe you lose them, right? I hear a long time ago that every single new page that you have between when some customer arrive and when they purchase the product, you lose between 2 to 5% of the people in every single step. So we learned them from Asia, and we say, well, we customize your quote and buy based on that. But then we say, what about if we implement that here in Australia? Because maybe they're right. And we implement that here. And it was pretty good, the results. So the conversions and everything was pretty good. And we were surprised. So because before we thought, different culture, they have different needs, and stay there. It cannot be, switched to another country. It cannot be, used in another country. And we say, once we implement that, we say, but it works. And maybe we can learn from each other. I'm not sure if it's today because, it's a global economy and everyone uses, Amazon, Temu, and Alibaba, and then we have similar experiences, or because, I don't know, we can learn from each other. But this is something that, just pay our attention. And we keep doing that. I think it's really important to do that.
I think you mentioned something in another conversation we had, which is a lot of companies hiding fine print, whereas you've had to make fine print very relevant, like in front of like people's attention. Like, how's that gone into like research and development and understanding that you need to have that front of I guess the website?
Sorry, what do you mean? Can you...
The people, when it comes to insurance, really look at the fine print. They actually want to read the fine print, whereas a lot of other products, you probably wouldn't go into the depth of, you wouldn't flip the terms and conditions of the fine print.
That's, I don't call that fine print. We call that PDS. That's why I didn't get the question. So insurance is probably one of the only products you don't know the cost until someone claims for it. If you are going to buy a piece of shoes, you know the cost. That can cost you to create that here or in China or in Vietnam, X amount of money, and then you charge that on top and then you go. But insurance is completely different. In the same way, you don't read the fine print or terms and conditions just to buy a pair of shoes. You don't care about that. But because you need to have certain type of cover, so you need to read the terms and conditions. And we did some testing sometimes, and they really care about some specific type of customer. They really care about the terms and conditions. So one thing that we realized, and I work in finance in another project here in the past for a Melbourne company, we realized that if you want the customer trust you, you need to try to avoid any small letters, any hidden information, any even drop downs. So you need to put all at front, So instead to use a drop down, if we have 3 options, we use a toggle. If we have 5 to 7 options, we use what we call selectable curve. So it's all up front. So you really literally you don't hide anything. So we find out that providing that set of assets and these interactions, we enable the user to trust a little bit more, to understand that they can trust us a little bit more, and also to have a better understanding of what we are doing. And one thing that I personally think that can be really useful, and some companies are trying to do that, is remove the slang for the terms and conditions. Just do it in a flat English so they can literally understand what you are saying. But my personal opinion is that in the future, you will have your AI assistant that is going to read that for you. So last time, almost a year ago, I had to renew my content insurance for my property. And literally, I just copy the PDF and I send that to GPT. And they say to me, okay, because I was interested to flood, and they say, okay, floods cover in this, and this situation. And then I try them. So in the future, we also need to be aware that maybe they don't read the terms and conditions. They will have an assistant who read that for you. So yeah, it's completely different for insurance, that annoying industry.
I imagine we can't be too far off. It's like they're bored. Like I've seen pretty good examples on basically using any company data and being able to just ask questions like, where's this, what's that? And like they're building a lot for internal use, but I'm sure it's probably the same building it for external use. But you mentioned trust there, and I think that's one thing that I wanted to touch on. Obviously, building something and rolling it out across a company. How did you build trust as you rolled this out? Like I imagine there's sometimes hesitation or resistance bringing something new to something that's always been done a certain way. How did you build trust with your stakeholders or your customers?
So I think all back to real life example, if we meet each other and I don't want to say to you, what's my last name? And when you try to schedule an appointment, I say, I'm not clear about the date that I would like to have that appointment. Or I just delay that appointment again and again and again. Or I'm not clear, in what I'm looking for, or introducing myself or whatever, you don't trust me. But if I say my name clearly, you know exactly what's my schedule, so when we can catch up, and you know what's my last name, you can have access to my, LinkedIn profile, you will trust more, right? So I apply the same to forms. If the form is clear, you allow them to read field by field and know 2 or 3 columns where they can be loose in translation, where terms and conditions are clear, when you are not using jargon, where they have exactly the terminology that they are looking for, where you allow them just to customize the insurance in the way that they are looking for. Of course, we have some constraints. I think you build trust, right? Another way is when you put your name, last name, and then for any reason you lose the connection and you need to put that again. So we try to see if we can, with the technology that we have, if we can improve in all that way. I think every single step counts, and it's kind of like a balance as well. When you are getting more frustrated, you lose the trust. So if you ask me my last name again, and then you ask me the second time, and the third time, your frustration become like that you don't trust, So I think it's based on that, to be honest.
I imagine your frustration for me asking you what your last name is 5 times is probably at the same level.
You are not the person.
Look, let's say hypothetically I was going into an organization, or I was an organization that doesn't yet have like a really nailed down design system. Like, what would your best piece of advice to get started be?
So I think the first thing that you have to do usually is convince the right people just to do it. Usually the right people, they don't care about design. They don't care about everything else that you care about. So you need to speak their language. So what more likely they will care about is, okay, what's the resources that we are saving using the design system, how fast we can speed up to market our products, and so we can beat our competitors, how fast we can make changes in our product if something new arrives. And by doing that, I will do a simple math calculation and ask them, okay, how long do you spend today to create a hero banner? How many hours and how much you pay per hour? How much you pay to change this hero banner, right? And then I will ask them how many times a month you do that, and many things are doing that in duplication, right? And then I will try to do a simple math, trying to understand how much money they can save if instead to build that 3, 4, 5, or 20 times, they build that once, but you get the knowledge of all of these 20 people building that. So then you save resources, split that to the market, and you can have a better asset because you learn from everyone. And so the first approach will be that one. And then doing a research, like I said before, about the patterns, about your products and services, and about the assets, the minimum amount of assets that you need. Sometimes I found out in different companies that they have exactly the same type of, let's say, hero banner for almost the same purposes, but they have 5 hero banners. And they say, why you don't have 1 or 2, which are the perfect ones? You keep improving them because you need to maintain 5. So the development effort to maintain 5 kind of like keep you away to keep improving and improve one of them. So I think this is the best approach to start. And talking about efficiencies, I think is being efficient is a more important thing in these cases. Doesn't matter if you are a big, large organization or if you are a small one, to be honest, or even as a person. So we need to be efficient in the stuff that we are doing to be able to do more with less. And I think that's the key.
I love that first point. I guess putting together a formula of cost per output and then kind of showing them how much time and money they're wasting. And if they just worked out an efficient way to do the one thing that they're doing repetitively, how much time it saves them or how much money it saves them. I think it's a great.
I can give you a weird example, and that some people laugh when we say that, but we say, when you have a dinner in your house, do you have 6 that you bought, one in IKEA, another one in Amazon, another one in your shop, another? No, you go to buy all the 6 in one. Your time and effort is a single time and a single effort, and then you put all together, right? Why in your company you decide to have one asset built here, another asset built here? It doesn't make sense, to be honest, sometimes.
I love a good analogy. That was a great one. Gaston, I've learned so much from this call. It was an absolute pleasure. Is there anything that I've forgotten to ask about? Because I think I've got a pretty good understanding of, well, I guess, everything that you've done, but then how to approach a design system. Like, is there anything I've missed from a question perspective?
I don't think you missed anything, but there is one thing that I would like to add, if you don't mind.
Please do.
I think the future of the design systems will allow us as customers to have a proper and fully customized version for us. So I think in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years, you won't have the same applications that I have. Your Netflix will look completely different to my Netflix. And this is doable because of design systems. You cannot do that without design system. But if you, in AI, they assign some type of weight to every single word, and because of the weight that they are assigning, you are able to kind of like build ChatGPT. In simple words, it's much more complex. If we have a design system where we can also assign different weights, and you just provide that to an AI system, and the AI, based on your knowledge, based on your usage of the app, can create that for yourself, that will be much better. Another thing that I believe that will enable that is that I don't think that we will see the UI as we see today interacting with the UI. I'm pretty sure that in no more than 5 years, you will be interacting with the voice and you will be reading UI, but not interacting with your hands. And again, I think design systems will be a big, big pillar for these two things.
I almost feel like that's a whole nother on that topic, because like there's so much to unpack there, and it's something that I'm very, very interested in, because like it keeps coming up. Look, I don't think right now is the best example of it, because the way they do it, it's very like, you watch an episode, they start delivering up the same sorts of content. And after a while, it becomes pretty repetitive and you don't know how to escape the AI model that you've built yourself, unfortunately, watching Netflix. Whereas customized web pages, it's just going to be fascinating to see how that works and how you will see something totally different from me. And it's going to make the efficiency so much better from like if you're an e-commerce platform, right? And you know how I shop and how I just want to get from A to B as quick as possible, and you can deliver me that process, the return on investment is going to be huge because I'm just going to be clicking the purchase button way quicker, right? But if you're the person that needs to read the fine print, you're going to be getting that at the start of the process. So it's still going to move you through that funnel. But like how that looks is going to be very interesting.
You raise an extremely interesting point that providing a better customer experience for you based on your interest will increase their conversion. So you will help them to increase their conversion. And, I'd really like to understand how companies will use data in the next 5 years. And this really interesting feature that came with the latest, iOS, that you can go to Safari and you can hide the content. So you click this banner and you say, no, I don't like it. So I think they will use that to be what you just said, right? Because I'm saying to Apple, hey, don't show me this banner. Don't show me this piece of content. So then Apple will be able to build more interesting applications for me. But I am telling Apple what I like and why I don't like. So what you say makes totally sense to me.
It'd be fascinating because, like, obviously, someone like a Google or even a ChatGPT, right? Like, they will see pretty quickly from a research perspective what you do and you don't like, and they could probably speed up the delivery of testing, right? It's like, he clicked on this and he said he didn't like it. Here's 10 more of that, and let's see how he reacts to this. It's like, just, yeah, it'd be very, very interesting. I wonder where you want to be working from a design perspective to be able to see how they evolve it, who's going to sort of work it out.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I'm not sure if you hear about that, but the guy for OpenAI is working with the ex-designer or chief of design of Apple to create another device. And I believe that, if I be honest with you, I don't think the mobile phone is the last. I think the real best user experience is without a mobile phone. Because, it captures my attention and it giving more things. But if you can have a device where they know what you need and they know what you want to get, they might not need you to go to an interface like the mobile phone. They might give you exactly what you are looking for,
Oh, look, for mobile phone, for me, that's not my problem right now. My computer's my problem. That I still have to type to do things. Like, I use voice for everything on my phone, right? I don't type anything because I feel like it's archaic now. Whereas yet, if you look at my computer, it's a half a keyboard. So when's this going to evolve to something where I'm interacting with it, which is kind of what you're talking about, right? So I don't want to be typing. I don't want to be using a mouse to show it where I'm going. I want this to be done for me. I'm getting lazier as technology advances. And
I think typing is always cool. So you have ChatGPT where when you use the app in your mobile phone, you can talk to them, but you cannot do that in your computer. Yeah, you can use a shortcut and create that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I think this way to interact, these touch points will change considerably. And look, like I had a chat with my wife and I say to her the another day is, what do you think that if OpenAI give you another device that understand you much better than Google Home, will you use Google Home? Not at all. Google Home, in comparison with the understanding of ChatGPT, it seems like 20 years, old. So our interaction with Google Home is just turn on the light, turn off the light, let me know what's the weather, let me know if I have something in my schedule, and that's it. But with ChatGPT, I can have this conversation back and forward. So I think that will change pretty soon. No more than 1 year, in my opinion.
Good. Getting impatient. I use ChatGPT for everything, right? Like, I think to a degree, my Google usage has gone from, let's say, 100% since I've started using ChatGPT to like maybe 3%. Like, I use ChatGPT for everything. I don't understand the flaws and stuff like that, but still, it's so much more efficient than trying to look through 10 different pages to try and formulate my own answer when I could probably use ChatGPT to formulate that answer for me.
In my opinion, the analogy is like, imagine you go to an university, but you don't know who is the expert, and then you ask, and 10 people reply to you. That's Google for me. You need to guess who is the expert, who is the teacher. Where when you talk to ChatGPT, ChatGPT is the teacher. It's one person replying to you, and you know that's almost a more accurate answer. And yeah, it's a big
difference, right? From a time perspective, or even just the user experience perspective, it just kind of worked it out. And now that they've added the voice as well, it's like the evolution is happening so quickly. Whereas if I look back at Google or my computer, like it hasn't really evolved. So I think, well, for me, ChatGPT is kind of leading the way with helping that evolution move faster.
Agree, 100% agree. And I think they understood your personal assistant like a real personal assistant. So we were told a few years ago that Google Home was our personal assistant. It's not. It's basically a digital switch where you can add for the schedule, you can ask them to turn on the music, and you can ask them several things. But a personal assistant is where you can have conversation back and forward. Remember that you say 5 days ago, where Google don't even remember things that you say 20 seconds ago. So it will be a huge difference to be honest.
I'm surprised that they've lasted as long as they've lasted, because I kind of looked at them at the start. So the functionality is pretty limited. Do I really need this in my life? Not really.
No. And yeah, I don't understand how it became so late to this game, because they have huge amount of data. So I say before, I like to read how the companies will do things in 5 years or 10, and it always is competition between Google and Apple. And I always thought, oh, because of the Google Home, Google is having a lot of information, a lot of data, so they will become the more, advanced in AI. No, I was completely wrong, 100% wrong. The way that ChatGPT was able to analyze our language and our brain and speak, they were much better than then. Or at least they are today, maybe not.
Interesting, right? Because I'm pretty sure Google has invested pretty heavily in OpenAI, or they did at the start. And I was like, if you kind of look back at like a Kodak as the example, like they had their cameras back in the day, and then digital cameras swiped them out. It's like, it's almost like ChatGPT is cannibalizing what Google's offering is to a large degree. And it's happened in a very, very short space of time. And it's like, they knew what was going on, and they probably could have capitalized on it way quicker than OpenAI has done.
Yeah. Look, there are a big difference between all companies in the 90s or in 2000 and the companies today. So in the 2000, you used to have Arista, or you have to have Yahoo or Lycos, as a search, but they didn't spend money to buy another company. What Google did, and all these big companies, is when they see a threat in a startup growing,
Right.
they go and buy. But they didn't do that with OpenAI because they trust themselves, or it was so quick. But against to any prediction, Microsoft did that. And it was a big step for Microsoft to do that. I don't remember the amount of shares, but I think it's almost 49% of the company, if I'm not wrong. I'm not 100% sure. But I think they have a big take there. It is an interesting video about the guy who is talking about all of this stuff. If I found the video, I'll share that with you. But he is talking about, for the last 8 years, 6 years or something, what was the fight, starting for all the AI companies and how they were playing on that. So it was pretty interesting video.
Yeah, please share it. It sounds fascinating. I'm an AI fanboy. I'm building my own AI software, so I love it.
You can. Yeah, I am too. I love that.
Gaston, I'm going to wrap it up. It was an absolute pleasure. I learned so much from that, and I reckon maybe we need to do another podcast on the evolution, design, and AI. So more than happy. But let's say if anyone wants to reach out with any questions, is LinkedIn the best? Once again, it's just a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and have a good weekend.